The text arrived at 11:47 on a Tuesday night in November, and it was, without question, the most inconvenient thing that had ever happened to Kang Taeyang. Not because of what it said. It said, "I know you're probably already asleep, but I needed to tell someone I got it. The Abuja Museum Commission. 3 years of pitching, and I got it. I'm shaking. Call me when you wake up." It was inconvenient because it was sent to the wrong number. He knew it was the wrong number because he was not someone. He was not the person anyone called with good news at midnight. He was the CEO of Kang Industries, 40 years old, recently divorced in the specific way that is less like an ending and more like an exhausted acknowledgement that something had been over for a long time. He had a schedule that ran 17 hours a day and a penthouse apartment that he occupied the way a person occupies a waiting room, functionally, temporarily, without investment. He should have ignored it. He should have put the phone down and gone back to the quarterly report on his desk and let the wrong number remain wrong. He typed, "I think you have the wrong number, but congratulations on the commission." He put the phone down. He picked it back up 30 seconds later because the report was not holding his attention and also because he recognized this with the mild irritation of a man observing himself do something irrational. He was curious what the Abuja Museum Commission was. The reply came in 2 minutes. "Oh God. I'm so sorry. I must have the number wrong for Delhi. This is embarrassing. Thank you though, genuinely, thank you, that's kind." He typed, "What's the commission?" A pause. Longer than 2 minutes. He could see the typing indicator appear and disappear twice, which meant she was deciding whether to answer a stranger at midnight. She answered. Her name was Zara Obi, and she was 29 years old, and she was an architect, not the kind that built towers for corporations, but the kind that built spaces for communities. Libraries, cultural centers, public parks, the specific category of structures that exist to give people somewhere to gather and think and be together. She had grown up in Abuja, studied in London, returned to Lagos, and had been pitching the Abuja National Museum expansion for 3 years with a persistence that her colleagues called admirable and her mother called obsessive. She had won it that afternoon. She had called her best friend Delhi to celebrate, and apparently, she would discover this later, scrolling back through her recent contacts in the disoriented way of someone who had been crying happy tears. She had hit the wrong entry in her contacts list by exactly one name. She told the stranger this. She also, because she was a person who had been carrying this particular joy for exactly 6 hours and had run out of people to tell it to, told him about the commission. The scope of it, the brief, the specific challenge of expanding a heritage building without diminishing what it was. She typed more than she intended. She told him about the original building, 1960s modernist, the specific quality of its light in the afternoon, the way the brief asked for something that honored that light rather than competed with it. He read every word. He typed, "The brief asks for deference to the original. That's unusual. Most expansion briefs ask for statement." She stared at her phone. "Yes," she typed. "Exactly. Most clients want the new thing to announce itself. This one wants the new thing to listen. It's the most interesting brief I've ever read. How do you design something that listens?" She sat down on her apartment floor. It was now 12:30 in the morning. She answered him. They talked until 2:15 a.m. Not flirtatiously, or not only that. It was the specific conversation that happens sometimes between strangers who have no stakes, no history, no performance required. The kind where you say the actual thing because the person on the other end is no one you need to impress. She told him about architecture the way she never talked about it in pitch rooms. Not the credentials, not the portfolio, but the philosophy underneath it. The belief that a building is a form of argument. An argument about what a community values, what it thinks it is, what it wants to become. He told her almost nothing about himself. He deflected with questions, which was a skill he had spent 20 years perfecting. But he listened the way he had not listened to anyone in a very long time, with the full weight of his attention, without waiting for his turn to speak. At 2:15 she typed, "I should sleep. I have a site visit at 7. "Then sleep," he said. "I don't know your name." "A beat. T," he said. Not a lie, exactly. A reduction. "I'm Zara." "I know. Good night, Zara." "Congratulations again on the commission." "Good night, T. Thank you for being a good wrong number." He put the phone down. He sat in his penthouse at 2:17 in the morning and looked at the quarterly report and felt, for reasons he found entirely unreasonable, that the report was even less interesting than it had been before. He did not text her the next day. He thought about it. He identified the thought, filed it under not appropriate, and went to work. She texted him at 10:45 that night. The site visit was extraordinary. The afternoon light does exactly what I thought it would. I wanted to tell Deli, but I'm already annoying him. Is this weird? Telling you. He read it at 10:46, from the back of a car between a board dinner and his building. He typed, "Not weird. Tell me about the light." She did. This became the pattern of the next 3 weeks. She texted him about the commission, the design process, the decisions, the small daily victories and defeats of building something from nothing. He asked questions. She answered them at length. He gave almost nothing back, his days, his work, his name, and she did not push, which he recognized as either the courtesy of a stranger or the instinct of a person who understood that some doors open slowly. He found himself, after the first week, looking at his phone at 10:30 in the evenings with the specific quality of attention of a person waiting for something. He did not examine this too closely. After the second week, she sent him a photograph, not of herself, of the site. The original museum building at 4 in the afternoon, the light coming through a high window and falling across the floor in exactly the angle she had been describing for days. "This is what I've been trying to tell you," she wrote. "The building already knows what it wants to be." He looked at the photograph for a long time. He typed, "I see it." "Do you?" A pause. "Then, what do you do, T?" "You ask the right questions. You're either an architect or you have very good instincts about space." "Not an architect." "Then what?" He put the phone down. He picked it up. He put it down again. He typed, "I build things. Different kind." "What kind?" "The kind that doesn't require thinking about light." She sent back a single word, "Unfortunate." He laughed. Alone in his penthouse at 11 at night, he laughed, a real one, sudden, the kind he had not produced in a very long time. He stared at the phone as though it had done something unexpected. It had. Subscribe right now if you're new, because this story started with one wrong number, and it is going somewhere that will absolutely wreck you in the best possible way. Hit the bell. Don't miss a moment. The fourth week, she told him she was coming to Seoul. Not because of him. She didn't know him, didn't know where he was, had no reason to connect him to Seoul. She was coming for a conference, the Asia-Pacific Architecture Forum, 3 days, a panel she had been invited to join about cultural heritage and contemporary expansion. She mentioned it in passing, the way you mention things to someone you have been talking to every night for a month, easily without ceremony. He sat with this information for exactly the length of time it took his car to travel from his office building to his apartment. He typed, "When?" "Next Thursday. 3 days. I've never been to Seoul." "What do you know about it?" "Han River. Bukchon. The Gyeongbokgung Palace. Good food. Very organized." "That's accurate." "Are you in Seoul?" A pause. Then, in the specific tone of a person who has just made a connection, "Have you always been in Seoul?" He looked at his apartment ceiling for a moment. "Yes." A longer pause. "Have I been talking to someone in Seoul for a month?" "Yes." "And you never mentioned it. You never asked where I was." The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Fair," she said finally. "That's fair." A pause. "Would you? Is this completely strange? Would you want to get coffee? While I'm there. You don't have to. This might be the most bizarre thing I've ever suggested to a person. I don't know." He thought about this with the full, careful deliberateness of a man who has made a habit of thinking before he speaks. He thought about his divorce, which had been finalized 6 months ago. He thought about his schedule. He thought about the photograph of the afternoon light in the Abuja Museum and the sound of a real laugh in a quiet apartment. "Yes," he typed. "Coffee. Thursday." "Okay," she said. "Okay. This is either very normal or a complete disaster." "Probably both," he typed. Her reply came immediately. "I like that answer." She arrived in Seoul on a Thursday morning in December, and the city received her the way Seoul receives everyone who comes from somewhere warmer, with gray sky, cold precision, and a beauty that reveals itself slowly, not on arrival but over hours, as the eye adjusts. She had a room at the conference hotel near Seoul. She had 3 days of panels and presentations and professional networking. She had, in her coat pocket, a phone number she had been texting for a month and a plan to meet the number's owner for coffee at 4 o'clock at a café he had chosen in Bukchon. She did not know his last name.
She did not know what he looked like.
She had, over the past month, constructed an impression of him from questions and deflections, and one real laugh and a quality of listening that she had never encountered in quite that form, so complete, so fully present, that she had sometimes felt, texting him at midnight, that she was the most interesting person in the world simply because he was paying attention. She acknowledged, aware of how this sounded. She told her colleague Funmi about it on the flight because Funmi was the kind of person who could be told things on flights without being dramatic about them. Funmi was silent for a moment. A stranger, she said. A wrong number. Who became not a stranger. That you've never seen. We're meeting today. Zara. I know. You know what? That it's either very normal or a complete disaster. Funmi looked at her with the specific expression of a friend who has known someone long enough to recognize when they have already decided.
Be safe, she said.
Text me when you arrive.
And she paused.
I hope it's very normal. The cafe was in a narrow Bukchon lane, the kind that requires knowing where you're going to find. Low wooden sign, paper lantern, a window fogged from the warmth inside. She arrived at 3:58 because she was always early and stood outside for a moment letting the specific quality of the street settle around her. The old Hannock rooflines, the stone walls, December cold, the smell of roasting barley from inside. She went in. The cafe was small and warm and half empty. She found a table near the window. She ordered barley tea. She watched the door. At 4:03, the door opened. The man who came in was tall, taller than she had pictured, though she had not consciously pictured him. Dark coat, dark clothing underneath, the particular bearing of someone who has spent a long time being the most senior person in any room and has learned to carry that without displaying it. He paused at the door and scanned the room with the efficiency of someone used to assessing spaces quickly. He found her. She would think about that moment many times afterward. The specific second when his gaze landed on her and stayed, and something settled in his face that she could not name then, could barely name now, but which felt like the equivalent of a person who has been trying to remember a word and has finally found it. He crossed the room. He sat down across from her. They looked at each other.
Tea, she said.
Zara. A beat. The weight of a month of conversation arriving in a room.
You're not what I pictured, she said.
What did you picture? She considered this honestly. Someone younger. Less. She searched for the word. Less what?
Contained, she said.
You ask questions like someone very contained. I pictured, I don't know. Someone with more edges showing. Something shifted in his expression. Not offense, something more interesting than that.
The edges are there, he said. I believe you, she said.
I'm Zara. It's very strange to say that to you in person when I've been saying it by text for a month.
Taeyong, he said.
Kong Taeyong. And yes, it is. She repeated it quietly, the way you test the weight of a name. What does T stand for in Korean naming conventions? It doesn't. I reduced it. Why? A pause. Because the rest of it comes with information I wasn't ready to give a stranger at midnight. She looked at him across the table. Small cafe, barley tea, December outside. What information? He looked back at her with the full, complete attention she had felt through a phone screen for a month, and it was, in person, considerably more substantial. My name is fairly recognizable in Seoul, he said. I didn't want that to be the first thing.
She sat with this.
And now you know the commission. And the light in the museum. And why the brief asking for deference rather than statement is the most interesting brief you've ever read. And that you text at midnight when you're excited and your best friend Deli is asleep.
He paused.
Now seemed like the right time. She looked at him for a long moment. Kong Taeyong, she said again. And then, because she had grown up watching her father read the business papers, and because the name was, as he said, recognizable even across borders. Kong Industries. Yes. She picked up her tea.
She held it with both hands. Okay, she said.
Okay. I mean, she set the tea down.
I could be intimidated by that.
I'm choosing not to be. You asked me questions for a month and listened to the answers.
That is the thing I know about you.
The rest of it, she gestured vaguely, indicating the empire, the name, the recognizability, is context. He looked at her. You're very direct, he said. You asked good questions, she said. I got used to answering honestly. It's your fault, really. And there it was again, the laugh. The same real, sudden, slightly undone laugh she had heard once before through a phone screen. In person it was different. Warmer, lower, with a quality of arrival to it, as though it had traveled a long way to get here. She felt it land in her chest. She did not look away. They stayed for 3 hours. The conference dinner she had at 7. She texted Funmi she would be late to, and then attended looking, by Funmi's account, like a person who had just had a very interesting afternoon and was not ready to stop thinking about it. The next morning, he sent her a text at 7:15. There's a park in Bukchon, Samcheong, that has a particular quality of light in the morning. If you're free before the conference starts. She read it standing in her hotel bathroom brushing her teeth. She replied, 20 minutes. Samcheong Park in December had the specific beauty of a place that has decided not to perform. Bare trees against pale sky, the stone paths empty at this hour, the cold pressing in with the clean insistence of winter. She arrived in her coat and scarf to find him already there, standing at the edge of the path with 2 cups of coffee, looking up at the trees. He handed her the coffee without ceremony. The light here is different from the museum, she said, looking up.
How?
The museum light is warm, southern. This is northern light, clear and a little merciless. It shows everything as it is. She paused. It's beautiful, but it doesn't flatter. No, he agreed. It doesn't. They walked. The path curved through the trees, the city below and around them, Seoul spreading in every direction from this small green high point. She talked about the commission. She was always talking about the commission, she noted with self-awareness, and he never seemed to find it excessive. He asked about the structural approach, about the decision to keep the original entrance axis, about what materials she was considering for the connecting passage between old and new. She answered everything. And then she stopped on the path and looked at him. Why do you know so much about construction? I told you. I build things. Buildings? Infrastructure, mostly.
Roads.
Bridges. Industrial facilities. He said it with the flatness of a man describing something that is true, but is not the most interesting thing about him. The kind of thing that doesn't require thinking about light. But you think about it anyway. He looked at her. I didn't before. The path was empty around them. The trees were bare and the sky was pale and the light, northern, clear, merciless, was doing exactly what she had said it did, showing everything as it was. She looked at him in that light, and he let her look, which was not something he did. Taeyong.
Yes.
I should tell you something. Tell me. I am only here for 2 more days. I have a commission in Abuja that starts in January and a life that is entirely located somewhere that is not Seoul. And I don't. I'm not someone who does things without thinking about what they are. She held her coffee in both hands. So, I want to ask you what this is. Before it becomes something I haven't named. He was quiet for a moment. The park was quiet around them.
I don't know yet, he said.
I know that I texted a wrong number for a month because the right number wasn't as interesting. I know that I haven't laughed like that, not since, he stopped. A long time. I know that I looked for your name at 2 a.m. for 3 weeks before I found out it was Zara, and I still don't know your last name.
Obi, she said.
Zara Obi. He said it the way she had said his name, testing the weight. I know that I want to know what you build with the light you keep describing. I know. A pause. The specific pause of a man who is being more honest than he usually is. I know this is inconvenient. She looked at him. Yes, she said. It is. They stood on the path in the northern light and let the inconvenience be true. Comment below, have you ever had a wrong number turn into the right person? I want to hear your story. And subscribe now. We are 2 days from the moment this either becomes everything or breaks apart completely. The second day of the conference, she was distracted in ways she attributed to jet lag and knew were not jet lag. She sat on a panel about heritage architecture and answered questions with perfect competence and thought about a park in winter and a man who had started thinking about light. He texted at noon. "How is the panel?" "I'm on it right now," she wrote back under the table. "Then you shouldn't be texting. You texted first."
Fair.
"How is it?" The moderator keeps asking about commercialization. "I keep saying that's not the question." "What is the question?" "What does a community want to remember?"
Everything else follows from that.
A pause. "Then, that should be your answer."
Exactly that.
She looked at the moderator, who was asking another question about commercial viability. She said into the microphone, "Before we discuss commercialization, I think we need to ask, what does a community want to remember?" Everything follows from that answer. The moderator paused. The room shifted in that particular way rooms shift when someone has said the actual thing. She looked at her phone under the table. She typed, "I just said it." His reply came in 30 seconds. "I know. I'm watching the live stream." She stared at her phone. She typed, "You are watching my conference panel. You told me about it last week. I told you about it as context, not as an invitation." "I know. I watched it anyway." She put the phone away. She finished the panel. She stepped off the stage and found a corner and laughed quietly to herself for approximately 30 seconds. Funmi appeared at her elbow.
"What?" Funmi said. "Nothing," Zara said.
"Everything. I don't know." He watched the panel. Funmi looked at her with the expression of a friend watching someone arrive somewhere. "Zara," she said. "I know. You leave tomorrow." "I know. What are you going to do?" She looked at her phone. At the live stream message. At this man she had been talking to for a month who had reduced his name to one letter because he wasn't ready to give a stranger the rest of it, and then had given her the rest of it over barley tea, and who was now watching her panel from wherever he was in Seoul because she had mentioned it last week.
"I don't know yet," she said.
But I'm having dinner with him tonight." The restaurant was in Itaewon, the kind of place that announces nothing from the outside and reveals everything once you're in: warm light, small tables, food that was Korean, and something else simultaneously, the specific pleasure of a cuisine that has listened to other cuisines without losing itself. She ate with the unguarded appetite of a person who has spent the day on a conference panel and skipped lunch. He ate with the slightly surprised quality of a man who has been in enough corporate dinners that a meal without agenda is a novelty. They did not talk about the commission. They talked about everything else. He told her about his father, who had built the first version of Kong Industries from a single civil engineering firm in Busan in the 1970s, and who had died 6 years ago, leaving Taeyong a company that was large and successful and organized around a set of values that Taeyong had inherited and then had to decide, in the years since, whether he agreed with. He told her this with the specific directness of someone who has been asked good questions long enough to know how to answer honestly. She told him about her mother, who was an architect also, not buildings but fashion, the construction of cloth into something that said something. About growing up in a house where every surface was covered in either blueprints or fabric samples, and both were being argued about with equal passion. About how she had understood early that the argument was never about the blueprints or the fabric, it was always about what you were trying to say with the thing you were making. "That's what drives the commission," he said.
"Yes.
The museum isn't saying the same thing it was in 1962. The country isn't. But the building still holds what was said then, and the job is to add to that conversation without drowning it out." She poured more water. Most expansion projects drown it out. They build the new things so loudly that the original goes quiet. What makes the brief unusual is that someone understood that.
Yes.
Someone on that client board looked at what they had and chose to listen to it rather than replace it. That's rare. She looked at him. "You do that, don't you? Listen before you build." He was quiet for a moment.
"My father didn't," he said.
He built over things.
Quickly.
Efficiently. The company's early projects. There are 3 communities in Gyeonggi province that are not what they were because we built through them. The last 5 years have been about asking what we owe those communities. What we owe the spaces. He paused. "It hasn't made me popular with the board." She looked at him. "Is that what the divorce was about?" A beat. the question landing in the space between them with the weight of something she had not planned to ask. He looked at her steadily. Partly, he said. She wanted the original version of the company. The efficiency.
The speed.
She wasn't wrong that I had changed, I had. And the version of me that emerged from that change was someone she had not chosen. Did you choose each other well? At the beginning? We chose each other correctly, he said. For who we were at that time. We stopped being those people. She nodded. She understood this. The specific grief of an ending that is not dramatic, that is simply the accumulated weight of two people growing in different directions until the distance becomes honest. That's harder, I think, she said, than a bad ending. A bad ending has somewhere to put the anger. Yes, he said. There is nowhere to put this one. A pause. I have been putting it in work. It is a poor container, but it is what I had. She looked at him across the small table in the warm restaurant in Itaewon, this man who had been a voice and a quality of attention for a month, and she thought about what he had just given her, not a performance of depth but the actual thing, the real geography of a person. I leave tomorrow, she said. At 1. I know. I have a commission that starts in January. I will be in Abuja for at least 12 months. The project is long. I know that too. So, I need to tell you, she stopped. She started again. I texted a wrong number because I was happy and I needed to tell someone and you answered and you listened and that was supposed to be the end of it. And now I'm sitting in a restaurant in Seoul the night before I leave and I am considerably more invested in this person I wasn't supposed to be talking to than is convenient for anyone. He was very still. The river with high banks quality, but she could see clearly now what moved under it. Zara. I'm not asking you to do anything, she said. I just want you to know. Because you told me the edges were there. I want you to know I see them. The restaurant was warm around them. The food was good. Outside, Seoul was doing its enormous, indifferent, beautiful thing. I'm going to Abuja in February, he said. She stared at him. I have been. There is a project. Infrastructure. A road corridor that runs adjacent to the museum district. I've been considering the trip for 6 months and not scheduling it. A pause. I am scheduling it. You are going to Abuja in February because of a wrong number. I am going to Abuja in February because there is an infrastructure project that requires a site visit, he said with the absolute straightness of a man who is also, clearly, going to Abuja in February because of a wrong number. She looked at him. Something in her chest was doing something she had not authorized. Taeyang. Yes. If you come to Abuja in February, I will show you the museum. The real light. Not a photograph. He looked at her. Yes, he said. That is exactly what I want. She left Seoul the next afternoon at 1 o'clock. He drove her to Incheon. This was, she told him in the car, completely unnecessary. He said nothing and drove. She looked at the Han River as they crossed the bridge, the winter light on the water, gray and silver and specific, and she thought about Northern Light and how it shows things as they are. At the departure's drop-off, he stopped the car, and they sat for a moment in the particular quiet of an ending that is also, if handled correctly, a beginning. February, she said. February, he confirmed. She looked at him. He looked back. 3 months of distance ahead. Abuja to Seoul, the commission unfolding, the road corridor project scheduling itself around a site visit that was only partly about the road. I am going to text you tonight, she said. From the plane. Because I always text you at night, and I see no reason to change that. Good, he said. She got out. She took her bag. She walked through the glass doors and did not look back because she was a person who trusted decisions she had made and did not second-guess them. He sat in the car for a moment after the doors closed. He looked at the building. He thought about a commission in Abuja and a road corridor in Museum District and the specific quality of afternoon light through a high window falling across a floor. He picked up his phone. He typed, "Safe flight, Zara Obi." Her reply came from the check-in queue. "You know my last name now. No more reductions." He looked at the message. He put the car in gear. He typed, driving. No more reductions. February came. The months between were what they were, long and busy and full of work, which was true for both of them. The commission progressed. She sent him photographs, the site at different hours, the material samples, the moment the new structural drawings were approved, and she stood in front of them at her drafting table with both arms raised and made Funmi take a photograph that she then sent to Taeyong at midnight with a caption, "The passage between old and new is decided."
Look.
He looked. He typed, "I see it. The original building doesn't go quiet."
No, she said.
It doesn't. The new part listens. He scheduled the Abuja trip for the 3rd week of February. He told his board it was a site assessment for the road corridor project, which was true. He did not tell them it was also something else because some things do not require a board's approval. She met him at the airport. She had not planned to. She had planned to let him come to the site, professional and orderly. But at 2 in the afternoon on a Thursday, she found herself driving to Namdi Azikiwe International Airport in the specific way of a person who has been waiting for something and has stopped pretending not to. He came through the arrivals door with his bag and the contained qualities she had seen in Seoul, and she thought, he is exactly the same. And also, because she knew him better now, he is nervous. The version of nervous that looks like stillness on the outside. She walked up to him. "Welcome to Abuja," she said. He looked at her in the Abuja light, the warm, southern, flattering light she had been trying to describe for months, and something happened in his expression that was not the Seoul expression. Something more open. Something that understood that it was in the right place.
"Show me the museum," he said. She did.
The museum at 4 in the afternoon was exactly what she had described, and also more than that. The way real things are always more than their descriptions, carrying a presence that language approaches but does not arrive at. They walked through the original structure first, and she moved through it the way she moved through her own language, fluently, with love, pointing out things he would not have seen without her. The way the original architect had oriented the entrance to catch the late light, the specific proportion of the corridor windows, the decision, in 1962, to use local stone that had aged into the warm ochre gold that the building now wore like a finished thought. He walked beside her and said almost nothing, and she felt his attention on the spaces the way she had felt it through a phone screen, complete, without distraction. In the central hall, the afternoon light came through the high window exactly as it had in the photograph she had sent him 4 months ago, and she stopped and let him see it. He stood in it. The light fell across the floor in a long diagonal, warm and specific, and he stood at the edge of it and looked up at the window, and then at the floor, and then at her.
"It knows what it wants to be," he said.
"Yes," she said. "That's it exactly." They stood in the central hall of the Abuja National Museum in the late afternoon light, and the space held them the way a good building holds the people inside it, not trapping, not displaying, but attending, witnessing. She looked at him. He looked back. No screen between them. No midnight texts. No reduction to a single letter. Just Kong Taeyong in the afternoon light of a building that had taught her what she believed about space and memory, and the specific feeling of a person standing in the right place. "I started thinking about light," he said, "after the first night. I know. It changed how I looked at the road project. We rerouted the southern section it was going to cut across a community market. The original plan had efficiency as the only metric." He paused. "We asked what the community wanted to remember. You said that was the first question. We asked it." She looked at him. "You rerouted a road corridor."
"Yes."
"Because of something I said on a panel." "Because of something true that you said. On a panel I was watching, because I couldn't not." The light moved slowly across the floor. The museum held its breath.
"Taeyong," she said. "Yes."
She took one step toward him. The space between them, the specific distance of two people who have been honest with each other for 4 months and have no more reason to hold the gap. "This is not inconvenient anymore," she said.
"No," he said.
It stopped being inconvenient somewhere around the first photograph. The light through the window. "The light through the window," he agreed. She looked up at him. He looked down at her. The afternoon light was warm and southern and flattering and entirely present, and in it he looked like himself, not the CEO, not the contained river, not the careful reduction, just the person who had answered a wrong number at midnight and asked the right questions and rerouted a road because of something true. He reached up and touched her face with the careful, unhurried certainty of a man making a decision he has been arriving at for 4 months. She leaned into it. "A wrong number," she said. "The right one," he said. The museum held them. The light held them. Outside, Abuja was warm and enormous and alive, the kind of city that moves with the specific energy of a place building itself into what it is going to be. Inside, in the central hall, under the afternoon light that knew exactly what it was doing, two people who had found each other by accident discovered that some things are not accidents. Some things are simply the right message arriving at the right time. Even when the number is wrong. That's the story. A wrong number. A month of midnight texts. And a man who rerouted a road because of something true. If this moved you, share it right now. Subscribe if you haven't. Drop a comment and tell me, what was the thing that got you? I read every single one. And I will see you at the next story.